January 26, 1945, 2:20 p.m. The frozen fields outside Holtzweiler, France, were quiet except for the chaos of battle. Amid smoke and gunfire, something unbelievable was happening. On top of a burning tank destroyer, a single American soldier was stopping an entire German company in its tracks. These were elite mountain troops from the 2nd Jebergs Division, veterans brought over from Norway for this attack, and yet they were halted by what looked like a small boy, weighing no more than 50 kilograms. Behind the German lines, 6 tanks, Panzer IVs and tank destroyers that had crushed everything in Europe stood frozen. Their commanders couldn't move forward without infantry support, which was being systematically cut down by this lone American. The 250 men of the German company had encountered what their tactics said was impossible, one soldier holding his ground against a full assault. The numbers were brutal. 40 tired Americans against 250 highly trained German infantry and 6 tanks. By every rule of war, they should have been overrun in minutes. But for a full hour, 2nd Lieutenant Audie Murphy defied every expectation. Murphy's path to that tank destroyer started far away, in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. Born June 20, 1925, he was the 6th of 12 children in a poor sharecropping family. Life was hard. His father left when he was 12, and his mother died in 1941 from pneumonia and endocarditis, leaving 16-year-old Audie to care for his younger siblings. "If I don't hit what I aim at, my family goes hungry tonight," he once told his neighbor, explaining his uncanny shooting skill. He could hit a running rabbit at 50 yards with a .22 rifle, while most people couldn't even hit a barn. Every missed shot meant no food. Under that pressure, Murphy developed an accuracy that would later terrify German soldiers across Europe. After Pearl Harbor, Murphy saw a way to support his family. The military offered steady pay, 3 meals a day, and a way to send money home. But joining wasn't easy. At 5 feet 5 inches and 110 pounds, he was too small for the Marines or Navy. The Army paratroopers wouldn't take him either. Finally, the regular Army accepted him on June 30, 1942, after his sister forged a note saying he was 18. Private First Class David Mouse McClure, who trained with Murphy at Camp Walters, Texas, remembered, "At first, we thought he was just a mascot. This kid looked 14, weighed nothing, and the drill sergeants tormented him constantly. But on the range, his eyes went cold. He never missed a shot." Murphy's journey from Texas farm boy to deadly soldier began in Sicily, July 1943. Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, landed at Licata under Patton's 7th Army. In the Sicilian mountains, Murphy discovered a terrifying truth. He was very good at killing. His upbringing had taught him to move quietly, use cover, and shoot quickly and accurately. Near Palermo, when his unit came under machine gun fire, Murphy sneaked around the enemy, destroyed the crew with grenades, and turned their weapon on retreating troops. Captain Paul Harris recommended him for the Bronze Star, writing, "This soldier shows extraordinary natural skill in combat for someone so young." The Italian campaign transformed him further. At the Volo River crossing in October 1943, Murphy held off a German counterattack alone after his squad was wiped out, killing 5 soldiers with a borrowed sniper rifle at over 300 yards. This earned him the Distinguished Service Cross. Staff Sergeant William Polson explained Murphy's method. Murph didn't fight angry. He fought cold, calculated, like he was doing math. See a German, take him out, move to the next. No hesitation, no emotion, just pure efficiency. At Anzio, the beachhead Churchill called the Wildcat, Murphy earned his first Silver Star by destroying a German tank with a bazooka at close range. By August 1944, during the invasion of southern France, he had survived Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome. He'd been wounded twice, decorated several times, and feared by both sides. When his lieutenant was killed near Montelimar, Murphy took command of the platoon. With 18 men against over 100 Germans, he held a crucial crossroads for 2 hours, personally killing 15 enemy soldiers. For this, he earned a battlefield commission to 2nd lieutenant on October 14, 1944. By January 1945, as Company B approached the Kulma Pocket, Murphy was no longer the baby-faced recruit of 1942. Combat had aged him far beyond his 19 years. He had seen most of his original comrades die or be wounded, and had personally killed over 100 enemy soldiers. The Kulma Pocket was brutal winter warfare, a German bridgehead covering 850 square miles west of the Rhine. Hitler demanded it be held at all costs, reinforced with elite mountain troops trained for Norway's winters. Company B was in dire straits. In the 5 days before January 26th, they lost 102 men wounded, and all officers except Murphy were dead or evacuated. From 187 men, only 40 were still combat-ready. Murphy himself fought with a leg wound from shrapnel received 2 days earlier, but kept it secret. Private Anthony Abramsky described their state. "We were done. Most of us hadn't slept in 3 days. We lived on cold rations when we could eat. Half had frostbite. Our machine guns froze. We tried to dig foxholes all night, but the ground was like iron. Come dawn, seeing our positions along the woods with open fields ahead, we knew we were sitting ducks." January 26, 1945, began cold and gray. The wind cut through even the thickest coats, and snow lay 3 feet deep. Artillery fire had churned much of the ground into frozen mud. Company B held positions along the edge of Batavier Forest, facing nearly a mile of open ground toward the German-held Holzwehr. Murphy arranged his small force as best he could. 2 M10 tank destroyers were his only anti-tank weapons. Infantry was thin along the woodline. He set up his command post in a drainage ditch that offered protection and a view of the open field. Field telephone lines connected him to supporting artillery, his only hope against a determined assault. The Germans began with an artillery barrage at 1 p.m. exploding in the trees. Shells showered Company B with deadly fragments for 30 minutes. It felt endless to those enduring it. At 1:40 p.m., the Germans attacked. Private First Class Donald Ekman saw them first. 6 tanks in formation, followed by roughly 250 infantry in white snow camouflage, moving across the field like ghosts. Murphy called for artillery support, but it wasn't enough. The German forces were too many, too fast, and too spread out. At 600 yards, the M10s fired. Their first shots missed. The tanks returned fire immediately. One 88mm shell hit the rear M10 turret, setting it ablaze. The crew scrambled to safety. The forward M10 tried to reposition but slid into a ditch on the frozen ground. Its crew abandoned it and ran. Around 2:20 p.m., January 26, 1945, with both American tank destroyers knocked out and German troops now within 200 yards, Lieutenant Audie Murphy made the decision that would earn him the Medal of Honor. He told his remaining men to fall back to safer positions in the woods, but he stayed behind. Instead of retreating, Murphy sprinted through shellfire to the burning M10 tank destroyer. The vehicle was on fire from an 88mm hit that had ignited its fuel and ammo. Thick black smoke poured from it, and the heat was so intense it could be felt from 30 feet away. At any moment, it could have exploded. Murphy climbed onto the blazing machine and grabbed the .50 caliber Browning mounted on top. From that spot, he could see the entire German advance spread out before him, but he was completely exposed, standing alone on a burning vehicle with nothing to protect him but smoke and luck. Private First Class Anthony Abramsky watched from the tree lean. "I saw Lieutenant Murphy climb up there while bullets and shrapnel hit the tank. It was the bravest thing I've ever seen," he later said. The Browning was a beast of a weapon, firing over 500 rounds a minute and accurate up to 2,000 meters. Its heavy rounds could rip through light armor and tear through ranks of soldiers. In Murphy's hands, it became a weapon of terrifying precision. For the next hour, he fired non-stop, cutting down wave after wave of German troops. While fighting, he kept in contact with his artillery unit, calmly calling in strikes dangerously close to his own position. His machine gun fire, combined with the artillery he directed, built a deadly barrier that the enemy couldn't break through. Sergeant Elmer Brawley watched from the woods. Those Germans got within 10 yards of him, and he shot them wherever they appeared, in the ditches, in the meadows, in the trees, he said. The cold weather made everything harder. The frozen ground had stopped the Americans from digging proper foxholes. The skies shifted between gray and clear, and the freezing wind made it difficult even to move, let alone shoot straight. But Murphy's spot on the M10 gave him a major advantage. The destroyer sat slightly higher than the field below, giving him a perfect view of the German approach. The .50 caliber's long range let him hit targets far away, while the smoke from the burning tank made it hard for the Germans to aim back accurately. The enemy soon found themselves in an impossible position. Their tanks couldn't move forward without infantry protection, and Murphy was wiping out those infantry squads one by one. German tactics relied on tanks and infantry working together, so without foot soldiers to protect them, the tanks had no choice but to pull back. Technical Sergeant Morris Wold, who watched from the command post through binoculars, later said, "Murphy's shooting was incredible. He wasn't just firing wildly. Every burst was on target. I saw him take down an entire German squad trying to sneak around our flank. By about 3 p.m., after 40 minutes of continuous firing, Murphy's ammunition began to run low. The gun barrel glowed red-hot. The M10 beneath him was sinking into the soft ground as its metal tracks and wheels melted away. German soldiers had crept within 10 yards. Private Charles Owen recalled, "We could hear the lieutenant's 50 starting to slow down. He was almost out of ammo." Some of the Germans must have realized it too, because they started charging. Murphy grabbed his carbine and started shooting them one at a time. At roughly 3:10 p.m., with almost no ammunition left and German troops practically on top of him, Murphy made the boldest move of the fight. He called artillery fire directly onto his own position. The forward observer, Lieutenant Walter Fenning, refused at first, knowing it would kill Murphy for sure. But Murphy shouted, "That's a direct order. Fire on my position now." The first shells landed just 50 yards from the burning M10, sending dirt, ice, and steel flying in all directions. German soldiers caught in the open were torn apart, but Murphy, still exposed on top of the tank destroyer, was hit by shrapnel in the leg. Wounded and bleeding, he kept firing what few rounds he had left. The mix of his own gunfire and the artillery barrage finally broke the German attack. The surviving German troops, around 100 men, started retreating toward Holzwehr. Their tanks, with no infantry left to cover them, and facing heavy artillery fire, also pulled back. Around 3:20 p.m., after an hour of relentless combat, Murphy climbed down from the burning vehicle. His uniform was singed, and blood ran down his leg. Behind him, the M10 continued to burn until it finally exploded 10 minutes later. The scene around him was devastating. German bodies littered the snow-covered fields. Historians estimate that at least 50 were killed, with many more wounded. The survivors were in full retreat. Murphy walked back to his men in the woods. According to Abramsky, he was calm, scary calm. He checked if anyone was hurt from the artillery, then sat down and lit a cigarette like nothing had happened. His hands didn't even shake. What makes this story even more haunting is the silence on the German side. Despite years of searching through records, diaries, and archives, no first-hand German accounts of that battle have ever been found. No one from the other side seems to have survived to tell what it was like facing Audie Murphy that day. The lack of German accounts from the battle is striking, especially considering how intense and shocking the fight must have been for their troops. There are several reasons for this silence. Around 50 German soldiers were killed directly by Murphy's actions, wiping out many who might have told the story later. Many German division records were also destroyed during the final months of the war. And after the failed attack, German forces quickly pulled back. American reports described them as discouraged and demoralized, unwilling to record what must have felt like a humiliating defeat. Documents show which German units took part in the battle. The main attackers were from the 2nd Mountain Division, supported by troops from the 708th Volksgrenadier Division and the 285th Assault Gun Battalion. These were not inexperienced soldiers. They were among Germany's best, veterans with years of hard fighting behind them. That made their failure against one man even more shocking to their commanders. The 2nd Mountain Division's journal for January 26th offered only a short note. Attack on American positions near Holzwehr repelled with heavy losses. Enemy resistance is stronger than expected. Those few words hide what really happened that day. These elite mountain troops, who had fought in Norway, Finland, and Russia, had never seen anything like it. A single soldier who fought as if fear and exhaustion didn't exist. After the war, German analysts studied the battle in a 1965 report titled Defense Against Superior Forces. They listed several reasons for their defeat: overconfidence in their numbers, failure to adjust tactics when the first attack stalled, and the breakdown of coordination between tanks and infantry. The Germans never attacked Company B again. That night, under the cover of darkness, they withdrew completely from the area. These were elite soldiers brought from Norway for this campaign, men who had fought for years without retreating, now falling back without even waiting for orders. The mental blow of being stopped by one American soldier hit them harder than their physical losses. Murphy's stand near Holzwehr meant much more than a single battle. His defense allowed the 3rd Infantry Division to hold the vital Badenvier Forest, which overlooked the roads leading into Holzwehr. Because the Germans failed to break through, their last stronghold west of the Rhine began to collapse. The village of Holzwehr was captured the next day, January 27, 1945, by the 30th Infantry Regiment. Within weeks, the German bridgehead west of the Rhine was gone. Around 50,000 German troops were lost or captured, freeing the Allies to push into Germany itself. The fight proved that even Germany's best-trained units could no longer overcome determined American defenses, no matter their numbers. French General Jean de Lattre de Tassigny later said, "The defense of the Holzwehr approaches by the American 3rd Division, and especially Lieutenant Murphy's action, broke the back of German resistance in Alsace." The tactics shown that day, especially the deadly mix of artillery and machine gun defense, shaped U.S. military doctrine for the rest of the war in Europe. France honored Murphy's division decades later. In 2000, the 3rd Infantry Division was given the right to wear the French forager, and a memorial was built on the battle site to remind future generations of the young American who helped free their country. When Lieutenant General Alexander Patch presented Murphy with a Medal of Honor on June 2, 1945, the official citation tried to describe the event but fell short of its enormity. He was alone and exposed to enemy fire from 3 sides, but his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused their attack to falter. For an hour, the Germans tried every weapon to destroy him, but he held his ground. The award ceremony took place near Salzburg, Austria. Fellow soldiers of the 3rd Infantry Division gathered to watch Murphy receive the nation's highest honor. Brigadier General Ralph B. Lovett and Lieutenant Colonel Howlett D. Edson, who had recommended him for the medal, said his actions had saved Company B from total destruction. Murphy never saw himself as a hero. When asked why he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, his answer was simple: "They were killing my friends." It wasn't heroism. "I just thought if one man could do the job, why risk more lives?" But the war never left him. What was then called battle fatigue, now known as PTSD, followed him for the rest of his life. Murphy battled insomnia, nightmares, and constant alertness. He often slept with a loaded pistol nearby, and later moved to sleeping in his garage with the lights on, unable to stand the dark that reminded him of combat nights. "I remember the war like a nightmare," he wrote. "It felt like something evil had taken over my body." His openness about these struggles helped change how America viewed returning soldiers. In 1973, 2 years after his death in a plane crash at age 45, the Audie Murphy VA Hospital was established in San Antonio in his honor. Murphy's first marriage, to actress Wanda Hendricks, lasted only 16 months. She later said he seemed like 2 different people, kind and gentle during the day, but haunted and tense at night. He patrolled their house with a gun and often slept in the garage with the lights on. Despite his own pain, Murphy became one of the first public advocates for veterans with psychological wounds from war. In a 1966 article for the Saturday Evening Post, he wrote, "I can't remember a time without nightmares. They became part of my life. But I was lucky I could afford doctors and treatment. What about the veteran who can't? What about the thousands coming home from Vietnam with the same problem?" Murphy's stand at Holzwehr was made possible by the weapons he used. The M2 Browning .50 caliber machine gun, designed by John Browning in 1918, was one of the most powerful guns of the war. Its large caliber bullets could pierce an inch of steel at 100 yards and deliver enough force to tear a man apart. The M10 tank destroyer he fought from carried 51 shells for its 3-inch gun, 1,000 rounds for the Browning, and 300 gallons of fuel. When hit by a German 88mm shell, that fuel turned into a raging fire over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The fact that it didn't explode while Murphy stood on it for over an hour was nothing short of a miracle. The artillery Murphy directed was equally vital. The 105mm howitzers firing in support could throw 33-pound shells more than 11 kilometers. Each shell exploded with deadly force, spraying shrapnel across hundreds of feet. Murphy's skill in bringing that fire to within 50 yards of his own position, a danger-close distance by any measure, multiplied his killing power many times over. Military analysts have tried to estimate his odds of survival. With 250 enemy soldiers firing rifles, machine guns, and tank weapons, over 10,000 rounds in total, Murphy statistically should have been hit at least 15 times. Even with poor visibility and his position partly hidden by smoke, his survival bordered on impossible. The physical challenge was just as great. The Browning weighed 84 pounds and kicked hard with every burst. Murphy had to stand his ground on a burning tank, breathing in smoke and fumes, keeping his balance while hundreds of rounds flew around him. Historians and psychologists have long debated what made him capable of such a performance. Was it his rough upbringing that hardened him? His years hunting for food that taught him to shoot without hesitation? Or pure instinct under pressure? Dr. Dave Grossman, author of On Killing and a leading expert on combat psychology, put it best: Murphy was the perfect combination of skill and circumstance. He had the marksmanship from hunting, the drive from poverty, the emotional numbness from hardship, and above all, a loyalty to his men that was stronger than fear itself. Murphy's own words explain better than anything else why he did what he did. When people ask him why he climbed onto that burning tank destroyer, his answer never changed. They were killing my men. That simple statement shows exactly what drove him. It wasn't about medals or strategy. It was about protecting the soldiers under his command. Murphy later admitted that combat had changed him forever. In a 1968 interview, just 3 years before his death, he said, "People call that day heroic. Maybe it was, but I became something not human. I turned into a machine built only to kill. I didn't feel fear or anger, just a cold need to destroy." Audie Murphy's record still stands unmatched in American military history. He earned every combat decoration for bravery that the U.S. Army could give, some of them twice. In total, he received 33 medals, including the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, the Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and 3 Purple Hearts, along with several foreign awards from France and Belgium. But Murphy's real legacy isn't measured by medals. It lives in his fight to help veterans who suffered from the mental wounds of war. The Audie Murphy VA Hospital still helps soldiers struggling with PTSD and other combat-related trauma. His book To Hell and Back showed generations of veterans that they weren't alone in their battles after coming home. His story has become a lasting part of American military teaching. The U.S. Army Infantry School still studies his defense at Holtzweier to learn about leadership under fire, defensive tactics, and teamwork. The Audie Murphy Club honors non-commissioned officers who show leadership and courage like his. Master Sergeant Ronald Johnson, who leads the Fort Hood Audie Murphy Club, once said, "Every generation of soldiers needs a hero." Murphy shows that you don't have to be tall, famous, or from a military family to be brave. You just have to care more about your brothers than yourself. Soldiers and historians still argue whether a stand like Murphy's could happen in today's wars. Technology has changed everything: drones, satellites, precision strikes, but it hasn't changed human courage. In Iraq and Afghanistan, there were still soldiers who stood their ground against impossible odds, just like Murphy did. Staff Sergeant David Balavia's close combat in Fallujah and Sergeant First Class Paul Smith's machine gun defense in Baghdad both reflect Murphy's same spirit, refusing to back down no matter what. General Stanley McChrystal, a former commander of Special Operations, said, "Technology may change how we fight, but not what war really is. It's still a battle of wills." Murphy's stand proved that the power of one determined person can still change everything. At the U.S. Army's Maneuver Center of Excellence, his battle is used to teach key lessons: the value of good positioning, coordinating fire support, and the mental side of warfare. Murphy knew that just killing enemy soldiers wasn't enough. He had to break their will to keep fighting. His calm but deadly aim convinced the Germans that moving forward meant certain death. Even as the world celebrated him as America's most decorated soldier, the young Texan was fighting a quieter war at home, against his own memories. The man who faced death without fear on a burning tank destroyer was haunted by the darkness inside his mind. His wife, Pamela Murphy, who married him in 1951 and stayed by his side until he died in 1971, said, "Audie carried wounds you couldn't see. He'd wake up screaming from nightmares about the war. But no matter how much he suffered, he never stopped trying to help other veterans. The war never ended for him, but he turned that pain into purpose. By speaking publicly about PTSD, Murphy helped change how America viewed the mental cost of combat. He showed that battle stress was a real medical issue, not weakness. His voice gave countless veterans the courage to ask for help instead of hiding their pain. On January 26, 1945, Second Lieutenant Audie Leon Murphy proved what one determined person could do. His stand at Holtzweier shattered the German idea that American soldiers were soft or weak. They learned that these young men, farmers' sons, factory workers, kids from the Depression, were as fierce and unbreakable as any army in the world when it came to defending their brothers in arms. The silence in German reports about that battle says more than words ever could. It shows how deeply they were shaken, not just beaten in combat, but broken in spirit. They faced something they couldn't explain or match, a single man whose courage went beyond fear, beyond reason. Today, the field outside Holzweier is quiet farmland again. The craters are gone, and the snow that once hid so much blood now covers peaceful soil. But every January 26th, people still gather there. French locals, American veterans, even a few old German soldiers, to honor the man who stood alone and stopped an army. Murphy's story reminds us that heroism isn't about being fearless. He was scared too. True courage means acting even when you're afraid, when others are counting on you. It means standing your ground when walking away would be easier. It means, for a moment, becoming something greater than yourself. That's why the Germans couldn't believe what happened that day. How one man held off 250 of them alone. What they meant wasn't just a soldier. It was something that no amount of training or technology could overcome. The unbreakable will of a human being. Murphy, the small Texas boy who once hunted rabbits to feed his family, became the man who stopped an army to save his friends. In both war and life, that kind of transformation, from ordinary to extraordinary, is still one of the most powerful truths there is.